pain or symptoms, then I can almost bet that the underlying factor behind why your symptoms develop has been a lack of alignment in your life. If you've been in the self-development world for a while, you might have heard about the word alignment. And I'm going to be explaining what this is in this video and why it's so important for your healing to take action towards your own personal alignment. So let's get started. So I thought this was a good video to make at the beginning of the year because, as you know, many people at the start of a new year, they start to consider maybe certain things that they can be doing differently. Maybe they haven't had such a nice year the previous year and they really want to change something. And I can guarantee that the best decisions that you can take are those that are taken out of alignment. So what is alignment and why do I consider it so important in healing from chronic symptoms? Alignment is whenever you live your life or take actions based on your own values, desires, and those needs or desires that come automatically to you, that are not filtered by other people's expectations or standards. So to give you an example, if we look at a child, most likely if the child is living in a happy family and he's still quite young, he's going to be acting out of alignment. What this means is that if this child is going to be offered a new toy, a gift, and he's going to like the look of that gift, he's going to say, yes, I want it. So he's not going to hesitate, question his decision whether to accept the gift or not. He's not going to start wondering whether there could be a better toy that he could have, because at that moment he's got this strong yes coming up. It's like, yes, I want that toy. I want to play with that toy, right? Or an opposite example, if that child meets another child who's a bully or who's not playing fair, that child is going to get maybe quite angry and he's going to say hey, I don't want to play with you anymore. Oh, if that child has healthy boundaries, that is. So that is a decision that he's taken out of alignment. He does not want to play with this other kid anymore because he realizes that this is not good for him. So the problem is that as adults, we learn certain modes of behavior. So we learn to compromise some of our needs and some of our values because we want to fit into society and to our group of friends or family. And because of that, we abandon certain aspirations maybe, or we abandon certain inclinations of ours. So we might be born into a family who values working hard and saving a lot of money. So this person might always be saving and keeping money aside and not taking any decisions to use that money for his enjoyment at all. In this case, even though this person values certain things that bring him enjoyment, like traveling or going out to dinners, he's always really limiting these activities, maybe to the extent of not ever doing them at all, just because he's been programmed to just save that money. In that case, he's acting out of alignment because his value is to enjoy himself with, let's say, his family or take trips with his family. So that's the value he thinks he's aiming for or that he's actually genuinely wanting. But by always refusing to plan anything, by always prioritizing saving every single penny he earns, he is acting out of alignment with that value and aspiration. What does this have to do with chronic pain? So chronic pain or symptoms can crop up when we've been acting out of alignment for so long that there's going to be a deeper part of us, let's call it the unconscious or the little child inside of us, that's going to get really angry and frustrated. It's going to say but hey, we're never getting anything that we want. We're never doing anything that we like. What kind of life is this? So that part of us is going to start cooking up a storm, and if we don't listen, it's going to start creating symptoms. Symptoms that maybe are aimed at getting us to stop whatever we're doing, that are aimed at getting us to take a break, to take life slower, but we're not really listening. Instead, we're actually fighting the symptoms, wondering what's wrong with our body, and we go off on a different quest of trying to fix our bodies, which of course doesn't work if our symptoms are coming from a lack of alignment in our lives. Essentially, when we are living out of alignment, the unconscious part of us knows it, and it's going to feel threatened. It's as if a part of us is always going to feel angry or threatened or, abused, and it's going to start sending signals in the body. And the body is, where we feel these signals, of course. When we feel these signals in the form of pain, tension, inflammation, fatigue, imbalances, and all sorts of symptoms, a lot of people tend to ignore this part of the healing work in favor of other kind of modalities or therapies that work on the body directly. Because by, let's say, trying to fix the body directly or by doing certain meditations or tools, you think that you are taking control of the problem. You think that you're doing something that's going to be helpful, and that feels empowering. And it can feel empowering, and it doesn't mean that you can't take care of your body in these different ways. The thing is, if we ignore the root cause, which is a lack of alignment, we are more likely to keep getting symptoms or to keep getting different symptoms if we resolve one symptom. So let's say that John has had shoulder pain and he goes to a massage therapy, and the massage is really great. It really relaxes his muscles and it convinces him that he can be okay. Now John maybe won't get any shoulder pain anymore. He might later on, but let's say that John does not get any shoulder pain anymore because now he believes, oh yeah, the massage did it for me. I was a good boy. I took action, and that's all I needed to do. And now I can just get on with my life, because I'm busy and so on. The thing is, John might then start to develop other symptoms like IBS, digestive issues, or anything else because, of course, the brain still feels threatened. He is still living out of alignment because he is working too much. Maybe he is ignoring the relationship problems with his wife. He's running away from these problems, but his unconscious knows that there are problems. His unconscious also knows that John actually values having a good relationship. But the thing is that he's not doing anything about this. So he's actually acting out of alignment. To work on personal alignment, first and foremost, we need to be ready to be extremely honest with ourselves and extremely vulnerable, which is, of course, why a lot of people don't want to go into this. There has been several times when I pointed out to friends or family that their symptoms have coincided with something upsetting in their lives, like a breakup, for example. And then they would tell me, oh, but I visited this massage therapist or this PT, and he says it's the imbalance in my legs, and that's why I'm in pain. And I'm like, okay, so see how that works for you if you're treating that imbalance. And I can notice this resistance every time they want to avoid touching on that difficult subject. They want to avoid their feelings and, because a lot of people just don't want to feel vulnerable and don't want to accept that their body is actually acting as a signal to these things that are not quite okay in their lives. But if you are ready to start really acting out of alignment, I promise you this is the most powerful thing you can do, not just to heal your chronic symptoms, but to feel better, to feel less anxious, to feel more confident with yourself, to feel more hopeful that you can make a change in this world, that you are worthy of your dreams and your aspirations. It is literally the best thing you can do, whether you're in pain or not. As a side effect, you might actually get less pain or symptoms. So how do we start acting in alignment? So the best tip I can give you is to start with choices and decisions. Starting with small choices and decisions and really having a look at your life in general. If you really value how you feel, if you really value yourself, what relationships would you choose for yourself? What kind of people would you choose to hang around with? If you could choose, if you're not just acting out of fear of being alone, right? Because a lot of people fear being alone, and that's why they hang out with the wrong people, because they think it's better to be with these people than to be alone. But if you could choose, what kind of people would you surround yourself with? What kind of activities would you prioritize for yourself if you could? Any activities that you like, but maybe your spouse doesn't approve of that much, or maybe your family doesn't value this activity, it thinks that it's not so important. But if you were really to listen to yourself, like that kid who was, without hesitation, just accepted that gift because he really felt that he wanted that toy, right? If you could choose for yourself, What kind of activities or hobbies would you prioritize for yourself? And number 3, what is your vision for the future? If you could get a little bit creative and get yourself out of that limiting situation where you're always considering all the things that are limiting you and all the things that you cannot do, like, what would you actually value having in the future? Even if things seem a little bit far-fetched. I know that a lot of people will think of like a mansion by the sea or like a lot of wealth, and there's nothing wrong about wanting that, of course. But really and truly, you always have to question yourself why you want something. Of course, it would be pointless having, this villa by the seaside if you can't enjoy this villa with anyone else, if you're friendless, and your wife has left you, and so on and so forth. So what do you really value, right? Maybe you value stability. That's okay. That means that you do need to keep your job, or that you do need to find a job that gives you stability. And maybe you value more adventure. So that means that you might need to work remotely. Maybe you value really close relationships or having children. So that means that you need to prioritize time with your partner, or to start dating and considering what kind of partner would be ideal for you. So it's all about making choices and decisions out of this aligned version of you. Choices that are not affected by what other people think, not even asking other people for their opinions, because this really can cloud and interfere with your journey of personal alignment, but really tuning into yourself, ideally during a quiet and peaceful time, of course. So I always like to think about, personal alignment either when I'm out for a walk or when I'm taking a restful day that's not too busy, so during these days is the best time to really feel what you really need, because sometimes we end up problem solving or trying to brainstorm and figure out of pressure. That does not work. So you do need to reach a more calm baseline in order to really take decisions and choices out of alignment. And then starting with really small things. Maybe you realize that there are a couple of friends with whom you feel more connected, and you feel that they are less judgmental, less critical for you, and there's another group of friends who is being a little bit critical or teasing you or questioning your choices. Well, then it should be obvious, right, which group of friends you're going to hang out with. And you take the decision to prioritize those people over the others. Maybe you are applying for jobs and you get 2 offers, and you actually make your decision of which offer to accept, not just based on salary, but based on the kind of conditions that job will offer, such as work-life balance and so on and so forth. Maybe you're having a rocky relationship in your marriage, and rather than trying to run away from your problems, you prioritize this relationship and you actually get couple therapy, or you actually get to talk to your partner honestly, even though it's difficult. But in that case, you're taking the decision to talk out of personal alignment. Maybe when other people criticize you or try to impose their opinions on you, you actually stop and question. You understand that that's just their perspective based on their own values and priorities, which are not the same as yours. You realize that you don't have to take on these opinions, even if they are well-meaning, because they just are not in alignment with you. This will incredibly increase your sense of self-worth. Even if nothing changes on the outside, even if you're going through difficult situations that maybe you cannot totally change, just knowing yourself and your values and valuing your own intrinsic wishes and inclinations will boost your sense of confidence. And that's really good for your well-being and health in general. So I hope I've given you some ideas on how to get more into alignment. Please don't disregard this part of the healing work. It might be the most important thing that you can do for yourself. It certainly was for me. And please let me know in the comments what alignment really means to you. What choice or decision do you feel like taking that is more aligned? Let me know in the comments. That's all from me for today, and I wish you a happy new year ahead. Bye-bye.